and social media, the way they are designed, it's really going to be a strong hook, right? Because they are designed to pull people in and hold their attention for a long time. My name is Dr. Bliss Lewis. I'm a psychiatrist, and let's continue the conversation about ADHD. And let's think about ADHD and social media. So ADHD, there's inattention, there's hyperactivity, there's impulsivity, there's hyperfocus. And social media and prevalence of screens is a relatively new phenomenon. So ADHD has been around for a long time. So there's this like new area of research and study of like what's going on for people who have ADHD in how they navigate use of social media. And there's a particular vulnerability. So there are a few aspects to this. So first of all, the upside of ADHD, the strength of ADHD is hyperfocus, right? So when hyperfocus is channeled in a good, productive direction, it can be amazingly helpful to the individual. But it can also get hooked on anything, right? And it can also go with overstimulation. So this tendency to like really get like sucked in and engrossed in something, just for a mind of a person with ADHD, that something could be social media, right? And social media, the way they are designed, it's really going to be a strong hook, right? Because they are designed to pull people in and hold their attention for a long time, right? They're also fast, right? These short videos, lots of information, and that can contribute to overstimulation. Right, so overstimulation, overwhelm, that's something that people with ADHD may experience anyway. And this situation of like really high intensity and speed and stimulation definitely contributes to overwhelm. Right, so another thing to consider is how dopamine plays a role in this whole situation. Right, so every time there's like a like or comment or something like that, that's a little bit of a dopamine release, right? Dopamine, that's like a little pleasure, a little reward sense. And because people with ADHD in general have lower dopamine levels in parts of the brain, they may really be seeking that stimulation, seeking that dopamine hit, seeking that reinforcement. It might be very appealing and make social media more addictive for people with ADHD. Another thing to consider is what happens to attention span, right? So because, you know, the videos are often short, fast-paced, different images, maybe looking from channel to channel, that is not going to be training sustained attention, right? That is doing the opposite, right? So it can potentially exacerbate this attention thing. That is already there, right? To like really shorten attention span. The other thing that can happen is because of this tendency to multitask while using social media, looking at multiple platforms, doing multiple things, you know, that can then translate into other areas of life, and that's not the best strategy for people with ADHD. Other things that can happen is there's a particular vulnerability with social interaction. So people with ADHD often have more trouble with forming long-lasting friendships, romantic relationships, right? There can be this need for seeking out positive relationships, and social media can do that. But at the same time, social media can bring negative social interaction, cyberbullying, you know, negative comments, arguments, conflict, right? So it's not so all positive, right? So overall, it's looking at the whole picture and assessing the pluses and the minuses. And when someone is struggling, right? When a person with ADHD is really struggling to regulate social media use or whatever screen time use, they may need support and help, right? So there are various information sources online for the various strategies and tips and apps you can use to disable things, you know, all kinds of strategies. So you can look things up to learn like what other people have figured out has helped them to get like a sense of control back. Another thing to pay attention to is there negative impact from the social media use on your life, right? So is it affecting your productivity? Is it a procrastination kind of way to avoid dealing with tasks? Is it getting in the way of like completing work, paperwork, school? Is it potentially having negative impact on mental health? Right? So spending a lot of time on social media is known to potentially exacerbate anxiety and depression. And anxiety and depression are already likely to run with ADHD, right? So that's something to pause and really check in. Is like, is the social media use really making you more anxious and more depressed? And to take like an honest look at that. There's a bunch of research also that's been accumulating over the last few years that shows that higher social media use is connected to increased ADHD symptoms. And in particular, it can increase inattention, it can increase hyperactivity, right? So that's concerning. There's also research showing that use of social media for people with ADHD can cause shortened attention span. Right? So that's not what we want. We want to work on lengthening, right? Training the attention span to be longer, even on tedious tasks, right? But this is doing the absolute opposite, right? So it's training the attention span to be shorter. So overall, this is a complicated area and tricky, and an area of vulnerability, right? Like ADHD is just a different type of brain. It's a neurodivergent brain that has wonderful benefits and strengths. And ideally, those are the benefits and strengths to like highlight and draw out and build a career upon and allow the individual strengths to shine. Right? And social media, right? It's like really a moment to assess like how much is spending time on social media helping versus harming. So, this is a very personal, individual thing for each individual to assess. And a lot of people with ADHD know that they are struggling with regulating their screen time. So if that is something that you're dealing with, you may need to connect with a healthcare professional, reach out for some support groups to figure out how to get to a place where you feel well, where you feel good about your relationship and your use of screens in a way that does not interfere with any major area of life. And feel free to share in the comment section about your experience with what came up for you with ADHD and the use of social media. What strategies, how have you figured it out for yourself?